This is a block. This is also a block. And this is also a block. Hello everybody. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine. In this video, we are going to understand the clear difference between var, let and const. What is global scope, what is function scope, what is block scope, and how these three keywords var, let and const behave in each type of scopes. Now, to understand the difference between var, let and const, you will also have to understand a scope. So yes, we are also going to shed some light on scoping, and then we are also going to discuss some interview questions that is based on understanding of var, let and const. So let's get started, and let's start from very basics. So var, let and const are three ways by which we can declare a variable in JavaScript. So let's say I want to declare a first name variable. I can say first name, but I will have to tell the JavaScript engine that hey, this first name is a variable. For that, we will have to use the var keyword. So now this is a first name variable. A variable is just a container, or you can say a placeholder that is eventually going to be assigned a value. Now to assign this first name variable a value, you can say equals to, and then here you can assign it a value. It can be number, string, boolean, etc. Now this is something that is called a data type, but for now I'm just going to assign it a string value. So string value is just a name. So I will say John Wick. Congratulations, this is a very simple JavaScript variable. Now to use it, you can simply say console.log first name. If I save this, you see we get John Wick. By the way, if you want to understand about all these basic things, then do check out the complete JavaScript course, link given in the description. So this is how you declare a variable using the var keyword. Now what you can do is you can update the data of this first name down the line in your program. For example, for any region, for some reason, now you have to change the first name to something else like Jack Sparrow, or maybe Captain Jack Sparrow. Now you will see that now the first name's value will be updated to Captain Jack Sparrow. It will no longer be John Wick. If I save this, now this is Captain Jack Sparrow. The same thing will happen if you declare a variable using the let keyword. So now I'm going to say second name equals to, let's say, Rashi, okay? And now I'm going to console second name is Rashi. If you want to update second name to something like Madhav, now you will see that the second name's data is also updated, and now it is Madhav. So var and let so far is completely same, okay? But wait a second. If you try to do the same thing with the const keyword, now there will be a problem. Let's try to do that. I will say value of pi equals to 3.1415, something like that. Console.log value of pi. If I save this, so far so good. But now if I try to update the value of pi to some random number like anything, now you'll get error, and the error will be type error. Assignment to constant variable is not allowed. You see, we get an error, assignment to constant variable. Now the reason is when you declare a variable using this const keyword, then you cannot redeclare its value. These things are allowed for the var keyword and the let keyword, but const is constant. The simple meaning of const in mathematics is constant. So constant. That's why I took the value of pi. Value of pi is always 3.1415. It never changes. So that's why this is going to be constant. Now, in no way I am saying that you cannot create this value of pi variable using let or var keyword. No, you can totally do that. But if you will create the variable name using let, then this value of pi will be updated to 71652, which is wrong. Okay, mathematically this is incorrect. Value of pi never changes, so it should be declared using the const keyword. Now I want to show you one more thing. For example, if you want to create a variable, declare a variable, you can declare it using like this as well. So you can say var random number, and that's it. That's it. This is the variable declaration. But of course, when you will try to access this random number, you will get undefined. You get error, so you'll have to comment this one. Okay. Now let me comment this as well. So when you declare random number, so this is a variable declaration without any value. If I save this, you see we get undefined. Why? Because this random number variable does not have any value assigned to it. Now you can do that. Random number equals to maybe something like this. So this is totally doable, and this is doable with the let keyword as well. So if you delete this, this is the same thing with let as well. But if you try to do the same thing const, then there will be an initialization error. It says missing initializer in const declaration. So you cannot declare a variable without any value using the const keyword. When you declare a variable using the const keyword, then straight away you will have to assign it some value, anything, but you will have to assign it. You cannot just declare it and you can just call it off the day and maybe down the line you can change the value. No, this is not allowed. This can be done with the var and the let keyword, but for const these rules does not work very fine. Now you can slowly get the difference between var, let and const. So now whatever we have learned so far, according to that you can say that hey, var and let let are same, but const is different, and analogy is var can be reassigned, same is let, but const can't be reassigned, right? Yes, you are right, but there is a difference. There is a difference between var, let and const that has to do something with the term scoping. So now I'm going to write var is function a scope and let and const are block a scope. Let's not talk about these two terms. To understand about these two terms, you will have to understand what is a scoping and what is a block. So this is a block. Any variable declared inside this block is only going to be accessible inside this block. You cannot access that variable outside of this block unless it is declared with the var keyword. So inside this block, if you declare a variable using the let keyword, for example, if you say player name equals to, I can say Aman, and if I try to access player name right here inside this block, not like this, player name, you see we get Aman. But if I try to do the same thing outside of this block, you'll see we will get error. So we get player name is not defined. The same thing happens with the const keyword as well. So if you have a variable using the const keyword inside a block, then this variable will only be usable inside this block. If I save this, cool, I get Aman. But if I try to access player name outside of this block, you can see that player name variable is slightly grayed out, and now if I save this, I get error. Player name is not defined. So this is a block. Let and const are block scoped. But if I change this to var, let's see the magic. We get Aman. So variable is function scoped and let and const are block scoped. Now one thing is still unclear. This is not a function, this is a block, but I just wrote that a variable is function scoped. So let's now understand a little bit more about how variable works with the var keyword. So I'm going to comment this code, and here I have a more suitable example. So here I have declared a greet function inside which I have declared a myname variable using the var keyword. And all we are doing is we are doing the simple console.log of this myname variable. And when I save this, you see I get the output code block. Now, if I try to access this myname variable outside of this function, then you will see we will get a reference error. If I save this, you see I get a reference error, myname is not defined, because this variable is function scoped. A variable developed or declared using the var keyword is function scoped, so it can only be accessible inside this function block. Let me explain you this by another simple example. So inside this function I'm going to create another function. Pay attention, please pay attention, okay? This can be confusing. First of all, I'm going to comment this out, okay? So here I'm going to declare a very simple inner function, okay? I'm just going to call it inner function, and then inside this inner function I'm going to access this my name variable, my name, and just call it here. What do you think will happen if I call this inner function? Now if I save this, you see we get code block twice, first from line 37 and second from line 40. Now let me confuse you. What if I declare a variable using the var keyword inside this inner function? So here I'm going to declare, maybe I'm going to call random, or just call it player, or inner name equals to Rahul. Okay, and now if I try to access this variable outside of this block, okay, if I try to access this my name somewhere here, this inner name to be exact, what do you think will be the output? There will be an error. If I save this, you see we get an error. So error at line 46. So no, not at 46, but at line 38. So from line 38 we are getting an error that inner name is not defined. Reference error, we are getting a reference error. Now there is a problem. See, this is a block and this entire is also a block. So this variable that is declared in this block can be accessed inside this block as well, because after all this function is inside this larger block. Okay, let me minimize this. This function, this entire function is inside this block, okay? But when we have a variable that is declared inside this block, then this variable can only be accessible inside this block. You cannot access this variable outside of this block. No, this is not possible. So that's why it is said that a variable declared with the var keyword is function scoped, and a variable declared using let and const are block scoped. Now let me explain you scoping. Don't worry, we will come to this example very soon. So I'm going to comment this one, and let's just comment out this function call. Okay, so here scoping. So we have in JavaScript we have three types of scope: global, function, and block. Okay, so global scope, anything that is not inside any block or any function is global scope. So this entire thing that you see here, this entire thing is in global scope. So if you declare a variable called let, maybe a data set like this, you can have an array one, just random array 1 2 3 4. Okay, so this data set can be used anywhere. If you declare a function, here function, you can say access. Okay, inside this access function you can access this data set, and when you call this access function you will get your data set logged out. Okay, and even if you create an if block, if data set, then you can simply say yes, we have a data set. If I save this, yes, we have a data set. So this data set variable can be used inside this block. Even if you declare a new function inside this, no matter how nested you have this function access to, okay, if I console.log data set here, and if I call access to, you will still be able to access this data set. See, we again got this data set. Why? Because this data set is available globally. This is in global scope chain. So this is the global data set, and then we have this function data set. So something that is defined inside this function can only be accessed inside that function. So if I declare something here, even if with the let and block const keyword, this thing can only be accessed inside a function. So this is global. This can be used anywhere in the program. But if you have something called as player data equals to week. And if I try to call this player data outside of this function, cl player data, no, reference error. Reference error, player data is not defined, because this can only be accessible, this is only accessible inside this function. And similar thing will happen for const as well, const. Okay, so this is global scope, this is function scope, and then we have block scope. So what is block scope? Then if you have something like if and else, then that comes under the block scope scenario. So let me give you a proper example of that as well. So here I have a more suitable example to explain you block scope. So here I have a very simple if condition. So if this expression evaluates to true, then do the following task. Create an x variable using the let keyword and a y variable using the const keyword, and then simply print that. Now here we are doing two console.log, one inside this block and another outside of that block where x and y is declared. So if I save this, now you see we are generating a reference error, x is not defined. But if I comment this out, now you will see we are getting 10 and 20, the respective value for x and y, printed in the terminal. So this is block scope. So here let me write something. So this is global scope, and then we have a function that has this scope, function has its own scope, and then inside the function, probably if you are going to have something like an if statement, then if has its own block where you have the limitations for let and const. Okay, here we again have the const let and const limitations. Okay, so let and const are block scoped. You cannot access them outside of the block. For example, if you declare this inside this block, then even if it is inside a function, you cannot access them right here. For example, if I uncomment this quickly, and then if you have something right here, for example, if I say r1, function r1, maybe I can have a const, or maybe somewhere right here I can say let no or not equals to something. You cannot access if true, not, you cannot access this not right here. You can't do that. If I call r1, no, you will generate an error. You see, get an error. Why? Not is not defined. Why? Because let and const, both of them are block scoped. Okay, but if you change this to var, now you can see you get undefined. Why? Because variable is hosted. Now again I'm talking about hosting and stuff, so we are going to talk about them probably later down the line. But if you watch the complete JavaScript series, there I have discussed what is hosting. But this is what this is. Let and const cannot be used outside of this block, but variable is function scoped. So if you have declared a variable right here, then you can use that inside this complete function. But if you have this even if you have this let right here, even if you try to use this let right here inside this function, you will not be able to do that. If you save this, you see not is not defined. Why? Because let and const are block scoped. If it is declared here, it is only going to be used in this block. So this is block scoped, this is function scoped, and then this entire thing is global scope. Okay, let me tell you again. See, we have this not declared inside this block, and we are trying to access this not here. This is not possible. But if you change this to var, now you will see you get something printed. Okay, of course right here this is not printed because this is related to hosting, so let me delete this. But here you see you get not printed. Why? Because variable is function scoped. So where declared even inside this block, variable, since it is function scoped, it is going to be used inside this entire function. But let and const have limitations. They can only be used, they can only be accessible inside the block where they are declared. Now I have a keynote presentation that I'm going to use to explain you scope. So see, this is a township. Okay, so this is a very simple township. Now inside this township we have 4 houses, 1 2 3 4, and this is a community tree. So all of these houses can access this community tree, right? So this is a var keyword. Yeah, you can think it like that. But if you place this tree inside this home, then only this home can access this tree. this and this home cannot access this tree. So if this tree is planted inside this house or the backyard of this house, then this tree can only be accessible inside this house. So this is scoping. Something that is declared within that scope, it can only be accessible inside that scope. But if it is globally declared, then all of these houses can access the tree. So for example, if they wants to seek the fruit of this tree, all of these houses has equal opportunity. But if it is placed inside any one of these houses, then no, these three houses cannot have access to the fruits of this tree. Only the house where it is planted has the access. So the terminology can be understood right here. So function global, so something that is declared globally, tree. This tree can be accessible anywhere. If you have function house1, house1 can access this tree. For example, if I say const tree equals to a mango tree, console.log tree house1, if I access this, you see we get mango tree. And if we have again a house 2, we can access this tree. But if this tree is declared inside house 1, then house 2 cannot access this tree. See, house 2, we'll have to call this house 2. We will get reference error for house 2. So you see, tree is not defined. Where it is not defined? At line 87. So at line 87, tree is defined, but tree is not defined in this scope. Tree is in this scope. If this tree was available in the global scope right here, then it was accessible by both these houses. But since this tree is declared here, house 2 cannot access. But if you declare this at house 2, then house 1 cannot access. So now the error will be tree is not defined at line 83. So now house 1 cannot access this tree. So this is scoping. Something that is declared at a particular place, this can be accessible only there with respect to the terms and conditions that is attached using while using the var, let and the const keyword. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a few JavaScript tricky interview questions. I don't have a lot of questions, I just have 2. So yeah, so this is the first question. Pause the video and try to come up with the answer, and I'm going to go straight away towards the solution. So first I have a variable called count equals to 1, and then we have this local scope. Okay, actually block scope, not local scope. Okay, so this is global and this is local scope, but since both of them are in global scope, this if block is also in the global scope. So if we have a count variable that has the value of 1, then we have the count variable that has value of 2. So this console.log will actually print 2 because we have the same count variable defined in the same scope, in the global scope. Okay, so if I save, then the value is going to be 2. Okay, so this count of 1 will be updated with this 2. If I save this, you get 2 because this entire if block is also in the global scope. Okay, so this is 2. Comment this out, and now we have this question. So variable number equals to 42. Well, now we have a function scope. Okay, so this is global scope, this is global scope, and then we have this is function scope, which means that it will have its own scope. Okay, so console.log num variable num. So now we have a number. So this number is different than this number. So this number is 100. Console.log number 100. So so first of all, what is happening here is that at line 107 we have declared this number variable with the value of 100, and then we are trying to access it at 106. So this will be undefined. Why? Because we are trying to access a variable that is not yet declared. And then after this we have this console.log number, so this will be 100. Okay, since this is another scope, then this number will not be updated. In this case, both of these in the global scope. Okay, and we are just updating the count variable, but here we have this entire scope. Okay, since variable is function scoped, both of them are going to be treated as a global, you can say global partner maybe. So yeah, this is going to be 2, but here since it is altogether different scope, then this number will be treated separately and this number will be treated separately. So if I save this, if I execute this function, you will see we get undefined and 100. Now if I try to print this number, you can see there will be no problem at all. You can say num. If I save this, now you get 42 undefined and 100. So there is no problem. Let me write a comment. Two variables can have same name if they are in different scope chain. Okay, cool. So this was a very simple JavaScript video. Please subscribe for more JavaScript concepts broken down in chunks, and I'll see you very soon. Yeah, please subscribe.